Hey guys, so I've over the last probably like 4 years of my life gotten pretty big into trying to understand health and fitness and whatnot. Being a personal trainer and just having a general interest in how things work. I've done a lot of studying, a lot of research, watched a lot of documentaries and various things, and I've learned a lot over the years. But what I've found is that a lot of these things are from all sorts of different perspectives, and it can often make it very confusing as to what's good, what's bad, what should I eat, what shouldn't I eat. And I'm going to essentially try and answer that question and make it as simple as possible, just from what I've learned, and without trying to step on anyone's beliefs or what you shouldn't do. And this is by no means what you shouldn't do, but this is just what I've learned and kind of simplifying everything into some basic understanding. So I guess first thing is, like, what are we supposed to eat? What should we be eating? What's good diet? What's a bad diet? And essentially, from what I understand and what I've gathered, is pretty much there's two different things. You've got whole ingredients, so whole foods, so something that's unchanged, unprocessed. It's just a whole, like an apple, a carrot, a potato. It's there in its whole form. Is by far the best thing that you can eat. That's sort of pretty standard. And things that you don't want to be eating is anything that's processed. So taking any one of those two things. So a whole food is an ingredient. So you've got ingredients, and you've got processed food. And in processed food is generally basically taking one or two more of those foods or ingredients and making something out of it. So there's the difference. Now, what's the difference between the two? A whole ingredient, your body can use that. It can take the stuff from that ingredient and it can use it in your body to do a whole myriad of processes. Processed food, a little bit different. Essentially, when you take a whole food and you pick it from a plant, I've got a couple of strawberries growing here. Here's one. So that is a whole food, and I've picked that off the plant, and that's going to be packed with nutrients and good stuff for me because it's literally just been picked and it's going to be delicious. So that's a whole food and it tastes awesome. But a processed food is one that you take that, refine it, grind it, smash it together, often with the use of chemicals, and put it together into a form that's still edible. But essentially, the longer this goes off the plant, the less nutrients and benefit it's going to have for your body. You can still eat it, but it's just not going to give you what it can give you when it's off the plant, straight into your body. So that's the difference: whole foods and processed foods. So steer away from the processed ones and try to eat as many whole foods as you can. Big tip for that is look at packets. If it's got a bunch of numbers on it, don't eat numbers. Numbers are just usually chemicals and refined processes of different ingredients. Often you'll have like all natural and various things on packets, and you just got to look at the packets. If it has lots of numbers on it, it's usually not a good deal. So just try and stick to whole foods as best you can, and as least processed foods as possible. Now, touchy one, meat. Meat, that's a hard one. Obviously, there's a lot of different beliefs on should you and shouldn't you eat meat, but essentially, the truth fact of the matter is we've been eating meat long before diabetes, heart disease, and all the other things that people claim meat to cause, and they're not wrong. But what we've got to understand and have the perspective of is that when we were eating meat many hundreds of, whatever it was long ago, the amount of energy that we had to expend to go and get meat and catch it and cut it up, cook it, eat it, whatever it is that we went through and process we went through to get it, was a large, arduous, energy draining process. So we didn't do it that often, and when you did, it was a pretty big deal. And so you wouldn't have eaten meat that much, and you would have been fine to deal with it. Our bodies and our gut flora would have been far better to deal with meat. But nowadays you've got it on tap at any grocery store whenever you want it. It's been cut off the animal and it's been off that animal for a long time, so it's rotting, it's gross, and it's often processed into other things and refined and then wrapped in deep fried in breadcrumbs and whatnot. So it's kind of two different kinds of meat. It's not, you can't just sort of say meat. We used to eat meat, we were fine, look where we are now, but meat today in the shopping center a little bit different. And we basically, what they're gathered from research is we don't want to eat it that much as we do. If you look at a lot of diets way back, meat was there in the diet, but it wasn't the main thing. Now we have like 2/3 meat on our plate and then some veggies or salad on the side, and that's considered a healthy meal. So not necessarily meat is bad, but massive amounts of meat and the kind of meat that we have access to, and the lack of energy expenditure that we go through to get that meat, kind of changes the game a little bit. So that's just my view on meat. Eat it or don't eat it, doesn't really bother me. But the industry, obviously, that has come along with that demand for meat to be on tap has created that situation where we've got terrible processes in which we slaughter and take mass amounts of meat, and the industries that basically are there because of our demand for meat are terrible industries, and that's a really good reason to, in my opinion anyway, to not eat meat. Is more in that fact that the processes in which we support for meat production are horrendous. So there's probably a better reason not to eat meat. So that's my sort of view on meat. I mean, all of this has to do with movement as well. We live in a world now where we can essentially go and get that food. I mean, look at Uber Eats nowadays. I can sit on my chair at home and literally order food to my lap and expend absolutely no energy whatsoever. When we used to eat and be incredibly healthy, what do you want to call it, hunter-gatherer, movement-orientated people, we expended a lot of energy to go get food. We were constantly moving to get that food, and that plays a massive role in how we then process that food and use it. Our metabolisms are shot because we don't move anymore. A lot of the body's processes, like your lymphatic system and even your cardiovascular system, requires movement to work efficiently, and for our body's processes to work efficiently. So just the very fact that we can get food delivered and we don't expend energy to go get food, you can have the healthiest meal that you could possibly imagine, and if you didn't expend barely any energy to get that meal, then that's just energy is going straight in with no energy expenditure, and not a lot of movement to go along with that. So you've got a sort of pieces of the puzzle that are missing with diets. Not all about what is good and bad to eat. It's how often are you moving? What's your metabolism like? That you could eat the most healthiest meal, but if your gut flora and your small intestines and the parts of your body that take on that nutrients are not working properly, then you're going to struggle to use that nutrients from that food. So you got to sort of take a bit of perspective with this stuff. That's kind of my hopefully simplified version of how to eat well and sort of be healthy. So basically, don't eat processed stuff, move more, and learn a little bit about how your body works. Always open to criticism. Don't by no means want to tell anyone how to go about living their life and eating and whatnot, but that's what I've gathered from what I've learnt, and it seems to work for me. And if you have any questions, I'm always open to discussion and always open to learn more. So cheers.